Welcome to this deep dive. You sent us Dr. Julie Slattery's book, No More Headaches Enjoying Sex and Intimacy in Marriage.
Hmm.
That title really grabs your attention, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
It's got endorsements from folks like Gary Thomas and Archibald Hart, and it promises, well, practical, honest, and really encouraging guidance for wives wanting to find joy in marital sex and intimacy, as, God intended.
Exactly. And our aim here really is to pull out the most valuable nuggets from Dr. Slattery's book for you. We want to look at those common hurdles couples face in their intimate lives and
Hmm.
maybe map out some clear paths toward a more fulfilling connection.
Right.
We're focusing on giving you quick, clear takeaways and maybe some of those aha moments that really resonate.
Okay, so the book jumps right into this idea of what normal even means when we're talking about sex and marriage. And what's struck me immediately is the point that every couple's sexual relationship is like completely unique.
Yep.
While studies can give us some general ideas about, how men and women tend to experience things, it can't really define what's typical or, maybe more importantly, what a genuinely healthy sex life looks like for your marriage.
Yeah, that's key.
What's key, it seems, is that these headaches, as the book calls them, the struggles and challenges, are actually incredibly common.
Right. And what's fascinating here is the book's emphasis that encountering these obstacles isn't really the defining factor. It's how a couple chooses to navigate them together.
Hmm.
It shifts the focus from trying to fit into some, I don't know, imaginary mold of normal to actively engaging with and working through the issues that come up in their own specific relationship.
And it's not just about the emotional connection either, is it? The book throws out some, surprising perks of regular marital sex for women.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, we're talking about potentially lower blood pressure, a better way your body handles stress, and even more of those antibodies that help you fight off infections.
Wow. Okay.
Plus, the oxytocin released during sex, the love hormone, floods the system, creating those feelings of closeness and intimacy. It can even act as a natural pain reliever and help you sleep better.
Mm-hmm.
There's even a thought that it might have some anti-aging benefits.
So, connecting this to the bigger picture, it really underscores that sexual intimacy isn't just about pleasure. It's deeply woven into a woman's overall well-being,
Right.
impacting her physically and emotionally in pretty significant ways. These aren't just minor side effects. They suggest a profound link between this aspect of marriage and a woman's health.
And get this, there's a potential calorie burning side effect.
Yeah.
Apparently, if you're having sex about 3 times a week for a year, it could burn roughly the same number of calories as running 75 miles.
Huh. Really? That certainly adds an unexpected and perhaps even amusing dimension to the conversation, doesn't it?
Totally.
It's a memorable detail that highlights the physical reality of the sexual relationship in a surprising and lighthearted way.
Now, shifting gears a bit, the book also touches on how our comfort level with talking about sex has changed over generations. It mentions the work of psychologist Jean Twenge, who describes it as Generation Prude meets Generation Crude.
Interesting phrasing.
Yeah. Essentially, those born after, say, 1980, tend to be much more at ease discussing sex.
Mm-hmm.
Think about growing up with the internet, more open media, even public scandals. It's definitely shaped how we communicate about these things compared to previous generations.
That raises an important point for couples, doesn't it? Especially those from different generations about how they approach communication around intimacy.
Definitely.
One partner might be very open, while the other could feel more reserved. Recognizing these generational influences can be key to understanding and bridging potential communication gaps.
And to kind of visualize the whole journey of sex and marriage, the book uses this really relatable idea of climbing Pikes Peak. It talks about how there are those really tough, even miserable moments where you feel like you can't go on. But then there are also those incredible, breathtaking views,
Right.
really rewarding times. And a lot of the journey is just the steady, step-by-step work of hiking together, encouraging each other towards that shared summit.
That analogy is quite powerful because it normalizes the inevitable ups and downs in any long-term relationship, and that absolutely includes the sexual aspect.
Right.
It reminds us that it's not always going to be easy or exhilarating, but the commitment to working together through the challenges can lead to significant shared accomplishments. Those we made it through that moments.
Yeah, totally. All right, so let's get into some of the core ideas, starting with this myth that great sex just happens.
Oh, yes, that one.
The book really challenges this, arguing that while the physical act of sex is natural, truly great sex takes effort, a willingness to experiment, and making it a priority. It's like learning any other skill, like cooking or playing music. You don't just become an expert. You've got to invest time and energy.
Exactly, and I think many listeners can relate to that feeling of expectation versus the reality of needing to actively work on intimacy. What are some of the first steps the book recommends for shifting that mindset from passive hope to, well, active engagement?
Well, it really pushes back on the idea of just settling for sex that feels routine or,
I see.
solely relying on external things like magazines or sex toys to spice things up.
Right.
The core message is that without actively nurturing your intimacy together, those things might offer a temporary spark, but won't address the deeper need for connection and mutual effort.
Mm-hmm. This is a crucial distinction. The book suggests that true and lasting fulfillment comes from the couple's shared exploration and commitment, not just from introducing external elements without that underlying emotional and communicative foundation.
Now, let's look at some of the common roadblocks that can hinder sexual enjoyment and some of the solutions the book offers. One big one is simply being too busy, what the book playfully terms sexual ADD.
Sexual ADD.
Yeah. It looks at what can help you connect emotionally and physically when life feels completely overwhelming. Things like actually taking that bubble bath you've been thinking about, maybe asking for a back rub,
Mm-hmm.
carving out some alone time as a couple, or really sitting down and talking through what's on your minds.
These suggestions really highlight the importance of setting the stage for intimacy, don't they?
Yeah.
It's not just a physical act. It's about creating the emotional and mental space where connection and arousal can flourish. Addressing those underlying stressors and intentionally making time for relaxation and mutual focus are key ingredients.
Another hurdle is simply not knowing how to enjoy sex. The book points out the stark difference between sex that's great, bringing pleasure, stress relief, and deeper connection,
Mm,
and sex that's, well, not so great, maybe messy, frustrating, even painful.
right.
For many women, the big question is how to move from the latter to the former and actually look forward to being intimate.
This acknowledges a very real experience for many women. It validates that not all sexual encounters are created equal, and that actively seeking ways to enhance pleasure and fulfillment is a completely legitimate and important goal within a marriage.
And a central part of that for many women is experiencing orgasm. The book emphasizes that female orgasm isn't just like a bonus. It plays a significant role in the physical and emotional benefits of sex,
Uh-huh.
like the release of those feel-good hormones.
Yeah.
And importantly, it stresses that for most women, experiencing orgasm is indeed possible.
This directly addresses a topic that sometimes gets minimized or seen as less important, doesn't it?
Definitely.
By highlighting the significance of orgasm for women's overall well-being, the book encourages couples to prioritize and explore this aspect of their sexual intimacy.
To help with this, the book introduces sensate focus, a technique developed by Masters and Johnson. This is a really interesting approach that takes the pressure off of performance and focuses on rediscovering pleasure through gradual stages of touch.
Okay, how does that work?
Well, it starts with non-genital touching, then slowly progresses to including the genitals, eventually potentially leading to intercourse and orgasm. The idea is to relearn how to experience pleasure without that immediate expectation of orgasm.
Sensate focus. That
Yeah.
sounds like such a valuable tool because
Yeah.
it reframes the focus from a specific outcome, like achieving orgasm, to a more present moment experience,
Exactly.
emphasizing the sensual connection and communication between partners. It allows couples to explore and discover what feels good without the pressure of a particular endpoint. The book even points you towards further resources on this from authors like the Penners and Dr. Rosenow.
And it also brings in Dr. Weston's insight about the balance of tension and relaxation being so crucial for female orgasm, which is a really helpful detail to keep in mind.
That's right. It highlights that reaching orgasm isn't just about physical stimulation. It involves a complex interplay of building physical tension and also allowing for mental relaxation. Understanding this delicate balance can be incredibly beneficial for both partners.
Then we come to the ever-present reality of fatigue.
Oh, yes. The big one.
The book discusses how stress and exhaustion can impact both men and women, but often have a more profound effect on female sexuality.
Mm.
It's interesting that some men might actually seek sex as a way to de-stress,
Mm-hmm.
but for many women, feeling physically and mentally drained can really diminish desire.
This is a really important point that acknowledges the different ways that stress and fatigue can influence male and female desire. It challenges the assumption that both partners will always be on the same page when it comes to wanting sex at the end of a tiring day.
And this lack of time and energy can unfortunately lead to couples falling into a pattern of quick, often husband-focused sex,
Right?
which can leave women feeling unfulfilled and like they're constantly trying to avoid advances when they're just too exhausted.
Which then can make the husband feel rejected.
Exactly. And you can see how that creates a negative cycle.
Yeah.
The book wisely suggests prioritizing time for connection, just talking, having fun, maybe cuddling, even before thinking about anything sexual.
This really underscores the importance of emotional connection as a foundation for satisfying physical intimacy for many women. Investing in the relationship outside of the bedroom through simple acts of connection can have a significant positive impact on the quality of your time within it.
Finally, the book touches on this internal hurdle of not seeing yourself as sexual.
Okay.
It addresses how resisting this God-given aspect of who you are can really limit intimacy. It poses some really thought-provoking questions about what might be holding you back from fully embracing your sexuality, whether it's related to body image, past experiences, or even just a sense of dignity that's been, like, misapplied.
This delves into the deeper psychological and emotional layers of sexuality, emphasizing that our own self-perception can be a really significant factor in our ability to experience and enjoy intimacy. Addressing these internal barriers is often a crucial step in unlocking a more fulfilling sexual life.
So, having looked at some of those barriers, let's move on to actively cultivating a great sex life. The book emphasizes that, particularly for women, it often starts with a conscious decision to make sex a priority.
Okay.
While men might experience desire more spontaneously, women often find that desire and arousal follow after they've made that initial choice to focus on intimacy.
This is a key insight for many women who might feel like they're just waiting for desire to magically appear. It empowers them to take a more proactive role in their sexual intimacy by consciously choosing to engage and prioritize it within the relationship.
And a big part of that involves intentionally thinking about sex and romance in a positive way,
Right.
not in a crude or inappropriate sense, but by actively thinking about being intimate with your husband. Maybe recalling those sweet moments from when you were dating or earlier in your marriage, focusing on what you appreciate about him and how you desire to connect with him physically.
This really highlights the powerful connection between our thoughts and our physical responses. Cultivating positive anticipation and focusing on the emotional bond can significantly enhance both the desire for and the enjoyment of sexual intimacy.
It also talks about the importance of creating romantic experiences beyond just the everyday routines of life. Making time for shared activities, sharing laughter, and exploring new things together, both within and outside the bedroom, can really help you avoid those relationship ruts and bring back some of that excitement you felt early on.
This emphasizes that sexual intimacy doesn't exist in isolation. Nurturing the overall romance and connection in the relationship through shared fun and discovery is absolutely essential for a vibrant sexual life.
I love this little tip. Using sensory reminders, like a particular cologne your husband wore when you were first dating,
Oh, that's clever.
to bring back those positive memories and kind of recharge the romantic atmosphere. It's a small thing, but it could have a surprisingly big impact.
Sensory cues can be incredibly powerful in triggering memories and emotions. This is a really practical and creative way to reignite those early feelings of attraction and romance within the marriage.
And finally, on the subject of thinking about sex, the book underscores the crucial role of flirting within marriage.
Flirting, okay.
It's presented as a kind of secret language of sexual love, a way to build anticipation and signal your interest, just like it is when you're dating.
This reframes flirting as an ongoing and vital part of a healthy sexual relationship within marriage. It's not just for single people, it's a way for couples to keep that spark alive and communicate their desire and attraction for one another.
Moving on to more practical advice, the book points out the value of prioritizing rest, even suggesting taking short naps to boost your energy levels for intimacy in the evening.
Oh, yes, please.
I think a lot of us can definitely relate to that.
Absolutely. Fatigue is such a common obstacle, and this simple suggestion of a short nap can make a significant difference in having the energy and desire for connection at the end of a long day.
It also touches on the idea of dealing with those energy vampires in our lives, those unresolved conflicts or lingering fears, and how addressing them directly can actually free up a lot of emotional and mental energy in the long run.
This connects our emotional well-being directly to our physical energy levels and our capacity for intimacy. Resolving those underlying issues can really clear the way for greater connection.
And then there's the seemingly unromantic, but often necessary practice of actually making time for sex.
Scheduling sex.
Yeah, scheduling it. The book argues that even though it might sound a bit planned, scheduling intimacy can really help ensure it happens, especially when life gets incredibly busy.
Right.
It's about intentional planning, building anticipation, and consciously budgeting time for that connection.
This takes a very practical approach to overcoming the barrier of busyness. While spontaneity is wonderful, intentionally setting aside time for intimacy acknowledges its importance and makes it much more likely to occur. The book even mentions the idea of requisition orders as a less direct way of signaling that you're open to intimacy.
Which is kind of a fun concept, right? A
Yeah.
way to give your partner a little heads up that you're feeling receptive,
Yeah.
giving them time to maybe anticipate and shift gears for the evening.
Exactly. It's a way to communicate desire without the pressure of an immediate initiation, allowing for anticipation and a change in focus for the evening.
Now let's move into a really thought-provoking section. The importance of fences in marital sexuality.
Okay, fences.
The book starts by looking at the story of Adam and Eve, and it makes you wonder why they fixated on that one forbidden tree when they had access to so much else in the Garden of Eden.
Good point. This is a powerful way to open up a discussion about boundaries. It uses a very familiar biblical story to illustrate that human tendency to be drawn towards what's off limits,
Right.
sometimes at the cost of fully enjoying the abundance of good that we already have.
Applying this to sex, the book suggests that without these fences, to protect the relationship from things that can pervert or harm it, couples might actually hold back from fully enjoying what God has given them to share. Or they might become so focused on pushing those boundaries that they miss out on the deeper, more fulfilling pleasures that exist within them.
This reframes boundaries not as restrictive rules, but as protective and ultimately enabling. By establishing healthy fences, couples can create a safe and secure space where they can explore and enjoy their sexuality without the fear of crossing into harmful or destructive territory.
The book then tackles the question of where these fences are, acknowledging the many, is this okay?
Yeah.
Questions couples have about things like sex toys, fantasy, role-playing.
Yeah, the gray areas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It wisely avoids giving black and white answers to every specific question, explaining that trying to do so where the Bible isn't explicit can actually lead to legalism.
Right.
Instead, it really emphasizes using core biblical principles
Yeah.
as your guide for discernment in these gray areas.
This encourages a more mature and principle-centered approach to navigating these often complex issues. Rather than just looking for a list of do's and don'ts, couples are encouraged to think deeply about biblical values and how they apply to their unique relationship and their understanding of what honors God in each other.
One really vital fence that the book highlights is the principle of sexual purity.
Okay.
It's presented as something essential for the health of the marriage and as a way of respecting the Holy Spirit within us. It cautions against the dangers of using mental images of other people or engaging with sexually explicit material, even within the context of marriage.
This really underscores the importance of safeguarding the sanctity of the marital bond and the potential damage that can be done by introducing external influences into the intimate space of the relationship. It connects the idea of sexual purity to a deeper spiritual commitment within the marriage.
The book also makes the point that sex can become a really destructive force when it's twisted into things like oppression, humiliation, guilt, and shame. It shares a powerful example of a couple, Steve and Debbie, whose dynamic had become really unhealthy in that way.
Wow. This serves as a stark reminder of how something intended for love and connection can become a source of pain and dysfunction when fundamental principles are ignored and selfish desires take over.
It contrasts this with unhealthy faith that's rooted in fear and rigid rules versus a healthy faith that actually leads to greater sexual freedom within God's loving boundaries, not more restriction.
That's an important distinction.
Yeah, the example of Rachel illustrates the danger of a seared conscience that can end up justifying harmful behavior.
This really emphasizes that true spiritual growth should lead to a deeper understanding and embrace of God's design for sexuality within marriage, which is characterized by freedom and joy, rather than a rigid adherence to external rules without a corresponding transformation of the heart.
The book makes the important distinction that while our conscience can act as a kind of warning light, it's not always accurate, like a watch that can be a little off.
Okay.
It presents the Word of God as the true and reliable mirror for evaluating our hearts and our actions. It also encourages us to tell the difference between what our conscience is telling us and what's just our comfort zone,
Oh, yeah.
suggesting that growth might require us to step outside our comfort zone, but never to violate our conscience.
This provides a really helpful framework for making moral decisions, recognizing that our own feelings and subjective experiences can be limited, and that it's crucial to ground our understanding of right and wrong in the objective truth of Scripture.
Another key fence discussed is that our sexual behavior should never be a stumbling block for others, especially within our marriage.
Hmm.
It stresses the importance of being sensitive to how our actions might affect our spouse, and it gives the poignant example of Jamie and Brad, where Jamie's past sexual abuse created significant challenges in their intimate relationship.
This highlights the relational aspect of sexual intimacy, emphasizing the critical need for empathy and consideration for a partner's past experiences and any potential vulnerabilities they might have. It underscores that our sexual choices within marriage have a direct impact on our spouse's well-being and healing journey.
Finally, it reminds us that our bodies are actually temples of the Holy Spirit,
Right.
and therefore, the way we act with our bodies should ultimately honor God, while acknowledging that God certainly doesn't want us to be without imagination or inspiration in our lovemaking. It points us towards Philippians 4.8, encouraging us to really focus on what is true, noble, right, pure, lovely, admirable, excellent, or praiseworthy.
This brings the whole discussion full circle, grounding marital sexuality within a larger spiritual context. It encourages couples to cultivate an intimate life that not only brings pleasure and deep connection, but also honors God and reflects his character and values.
Now let's shift gears and talk about how the arrival of children, something I know many of you listening can relate to, impacts sex.
Oh boy. Yeah.
The book makes a humorous but very true observation that while sex is what leads to having children, actually having children doesn't necessarily lead to more sex.
Ha! Ain't that the truth?
It highlights how kids can really interrupt physical intimacy at pretty much every stage of childhood.
This is such a relatable reality for parents. The book really validates the significant shifts in energy, attention, and overall priorities that come with parenthood and how naturally these can affect a couple's sexual relationship.
It breaks down these challenges by different stages. Stage one is infertility, which is an incredibly difficult barrier for couples,
Yeah.
and it requires them to really face it together and communicate openly and honestly. Husbands might feel a lot of pressure related to performance, and the book emphasizes the importance of them being united and trusting that God can actually use this struggle to knit their hearts together.
This stage really highlights the need for deep empathy and mutual support during a particularly challenging time. It encourages couples to lean on each other emotionally and to find strength in their shared faith and commitment.
Stage two is what the book calls the three's a crowd phase, the newborn stage. This is marked by that intense mother-child bond and the sheer exhaustion that comes with caring for a newborn, where the mother's energy and attention are almost completely absorbed. The book touches on the significant physical changes in the mother's body and the all-consuming nature of newborn care.
This stage really emphasizes the profound shift in the family dynamic that happens with a newborn. It normalizes the mother's intense focus on the baby and the potential impact that can have on her desire and energy for sexual intimacy. It's a biological reality, right? Not necessarily a reflection of her feelings for her husband.
Right, exactly. Stage three, the Energizer Bunny stage with toddlers, is described as just incredibly draining due to their constant demands and energy levels.
I remember that well.
Moms at this stage often just crave a moment of peace and being left alone. This can be a time when women might even intentionally avoid any cues for intimacy. The book offers some really practical suggestions for navigating this,
Like what?
like making sure your bed remains primarily for the couple and not a family sleeping space, protecting whatever individual time you can carve out, really prioritizing bedtime and nap time routines, and even creating a little decompression chamber for mom.
A decompression chamber.
Yeah, to transition from mom mode back to feeling like a woman before trying to connect intimately.
These practical tips are so valuable for couples navigating the constant demands of toddlers. They really acknowledge the unique challenges of this phase and offer concrete strategies for trying to preserve intimacy amidst the chaos. That idea of a decompression chamber is particularly insightful for recognizing the mental and emotional shift required.
Stage four involves tweens and early adolescence, where kids become much more aware of their parents' sexuality, which can lead to awkwardness or just plain curiosity.
Yeah, that can be tricky.
There's also a real risk at this stage of drifting into just being mom and dad, rather than remembering you're also husband and wife. The book really emphasizes the importance of continuing to have regular date nights where you don't talk about the kids, and even trying to get away for an annual trip together as a couple.
This stage highlights the crucial need to maintain your identity as a couple beyond your roles as parents. As children gain more independence, it becomes even more important for couples to intentionally nurture their connection as partners.
Stage 5 is the twilight zone of the teen years,
Oh, right.
where teenagers are becoming much more interested in sex themselves, while parents' bodies might be going through changes like menopause or erectile dysfunction. This can bring up a lot of conflicting feelings and even the potential for midlife crises.
Wow, that's a lot happening at once.
Yeah. The book stresses celebrating the mature love you share and affirming each other, not just as parents, but also as lovers. It also acknowledges the challenge of teenagers staying up late and reducing the alone time that you have as a couple, which often requires getting creative about finding those intimate moments.
This stage acknowledges the complex emotional and physical shifts that occur as children mature and parents age. It encourages couples to embrace this new season and to find new ways to connect and celebrate their enduring love and intimacy.
Across all these stages of parenthood, the book really emphasizes making necessary adjustments. It shares an example of a couple, Kurt and Allison, where simple romantic gestures didn't always lead to sex because they were just so exhausted.
Right, reality check.
It highlights the importance of protecting your time and energy for your marriage by sometimes saying no to other commitments. The sunset effect of just being too drained for each other at the end of the day.
The sunset effect. I like that.
It also talks about proactively tanking up your energy levels and recognizing that intimacy is as important as other basic needs. It even encourages women to initiate sex when they're feeling up for it.
Good point.
And redefining what foreplay looks like beyond just the moments right before intercourse. There's a powerful reminder from a woman named Dana about the danger of losing your marital connection. While you're so focused on overprotecting your teenagers, the importance of balancing those roles of parent and partner.
These are such vital takeaways for parents at any stage. They really underscore the ongoing need for intentionality, open communication, and flexibility in adapting to the ever-changing demands of family life while still prioritizing that essential marital connection.
Now let's delve into understanding some of the common gender differences in how we experience sexuality. The book uses the example of Lisa and Dave, who had very different emotional and physical approaches to sex, which led to a lot of misunderstandings and incorrect assumptions. It points out how we as humans tend to interpret things based on our own experiences without really considering that our spouse might have a completely different perspective,
Yeah, we do that, don't we?
as illustrated in the book by the story of Carol.
This section is so crucial for building empathy and breaking down those communication barriers that can so easily arise. It really highlights that men and women often experience and approach sexuality in fundamentally different ways, and understanding these differences is absolutely key to avoiding misinterpretations and judgments.
The book even shares the author's own surprise at learning some really fundamental things about male sexuality from a book written by a man for men, even with her extensive background in clinical psychology.
Oh.
It really emphasizes the value of both partners actively seeking out reliable Christian resources to learn more about each other's sexuality.
This underscores the ongoing need for education and a genuine willingness to learn about our spouse's unique sexual makeup. It encourages couples to move beyond their own assumptions and to actively seek out knowledge that can enhance their understanding and ultimately deepen their intimacy.
Translating that knowledge into true understanding requires empathy, really trying to grasp the fundamentally different experience of sexuality for men and women.
Right.
The book touches on aspects like the role of testosterone in men. There are often different reactions to visual stimuli, the experience of intrusive thoughts, and the pressure of performance anxiety. While women can't fully experience male sexuality, the book offers some really helpful points to keep in mind for better understanding.
Empathy is absolutely the bridge that connects intellectual knowledge to true relational understanding. Recognizing these inherent differences, even if we can't personally experience them, allows for greater compassion and ultimately more effective communication and connection.
And crucially, the book stresses that men really need to learn about their wives' sexuality directly from their wives.
Makes sense.
And similarly, women need to become experts on their own sexuality and be able to clearly communicate their needs, and often those needs might require ongoing reminders.
Right, not just a one-time conversation.
Exactly. Because female sexuality can often involve more mystery and be influenced by a wider range of factors, open communication is absolutely vital.
This really empowers both partners to take ownership of their sexual experience and to become active participants in creating a fulfilling, intimate life together. Open and honest communication is presented as the cornerstone of bridging the gap between potentially very different sexual experiences and needs.
However, the book does acknowledge just how challenging it can be to initiate these kinds of conversations about sex
Oh, definitely.
because it can feel so vulnerable, and there's often a fear of rejection. This can be even more complicated by generational differences in how comfortable people are talking about these things.
True.
The book illustrates the negative cycle of frustrating sexual encounters, like the example of Heather and Todd, where often the only sexual conversations that happen are in the heat of a charged and often negative moment.
Ugh, yeah, that's not productive.
This really validates the difficulties that many couples face when trying to talk openly and honestly about sex. It highlights the inherent emotional risks involved and how negative past experiences can create even more reluctance to communicate in the future. The book strongly advocates for shifting the primary motivation for improving your sex life from guilt or obligation to a genuine desire to love and please your partner.
That's a much healthier starting point.
Yeah. It then delves into the perspective that, for many men, sex functions as a physical need, driven by biological factors like testosterone, and that this need can intensify as sperm builds up. It uses the analogy of breast milk buildup to help women perhaps better understand this more physical imperative.
That's an interesting analogy. This provides a really helpful biological perspective on male sexual desire, normalizing it as a fundamental physical need, much like other bodily urges. That analogy to breast milk can be particularly insightful for women in understanding the potential physical pressure that men can experience.
But it's definitely not just physical for men, is it? The book, drawing on Shanti Feldhahn's research, highlights that sex also plays a really significant emotional role for many men,
Absolutely.
deeply impacting their sense of confidence and masculinity.
Hmm.
Feeling desired and having a willing and interested partner contributes greatly to their overall well-being and life satisfaction.
This is such a crucial point that really challenges the common stereotype of men viewing sex solely as a physical act. It underscores the profound emotional connection that many men have to sexual intimacy within their marriage and how it significantly impacts their sense of self-worth and their overall happiness.
And adding another layer, Archibald Hart's perspective brings in a spiritual dimension,
Mm.
explaining that for many men, their sexuality is also a spiritual need. Their battles for purity can significantly impact their walk with the Lord and their sense of integrity, often leading to feelings of guilt and shame when they give in to temptation.
Right.
The book even uses examples of men in Scripture, like Samson and David, to illustrate the powerful consequences that sexual desires can have.
This really broadens our understanding of male sexuality to include the vital spiritual dimension, acknowledging the internal struggles that many men face in maintaining purity and the profound impact that those struggles can have on their relationship with God and their overall spiritual well-being.
The book even shares a personal example where the author used her own deep desire for emotional and physical connection with her husband during times of conflict as a powerful motivation for seeking reconciliation,
Oh, interesting.
illustrating how understanding your spouse's needs, even if they're different from your own, can be a really effective tool for positive change.
That personal anecdote provides such a practical and relatable example of how understanding your spouse's needs, even when they differ from your own, can be a powerful catalyst for resolving conflict and really strengthening the overall relationship.
Now, let's address a different kind of headache,
Hmm.
low libido in men.
Okay, the flip side.
Yeah. The book acknowledges the sometimes painful reality of a reversal of traditional sexual stereotypes, where wives find themselves desiring sex more often than their husbands. It offers a sense of relief and validation for women who experience this and might feel isolated or like something is wrong.
That's so important.
It goes on to explore some common reasons behind lower male libido, including things like stress, depression, grief, underlying physical illnesses, and of course marital tension itself.
This is such an important topic that challenges those long-held assumptions about male and female desire. It really validates the experiences of women whose husbands have a lower libido and offers some potential explanations beyond just a lack of attraction or desire for their wives.
The book discusses the significant emotional toll this can take on wives,
Mm.
often leading to feelings of shame, self-blame, and a sense of being rejected and uncherished.
Oof. Yeah, that's rough.
It also highlights the potential impact on the husband's own sense of competency and masculinity, as men are often conditioned to link their manhood with their sexual performance.
Right, that pressure.
It then revisits the concept of normal sexuality,
Hmm.
really emphasizing the difference between what might be statistically average and what is actually healthy or normal for an individual or a couple.
Mhm.
It talks about the bell curve of sexual desire for both men and women, and strongly encourages couples to avoid comparing their experience to others, and instead to really focus on building intimacy and fulfillment within their own unique marriage.
This provides a much-needed perspective on the natural diversity of sexual desire within both genders and the real dangers of comparing your own intimate life to some idealized societal norm. It encourages a focus on individual and relational well-being rather than trying to conform to external expectations.
It then delves into some of the potential medical causes of low testosterone, which is also known as hypogonadism,
Right.
as well as problems with blood circulation that can affect sexual function,
Right.
and various lifestyle factors that can contribute to erectile dysfunction.
Things like substance abuse, smoking, obesity.
Yeah, even prolonged bicycling, apparently.
Yeah.
It also touches on the strong cultural emphasis on male sexual adequacy, often fueled by things like those ubiquitous Viagra commercials,
Oh, those ads.
and how experiencing physical dysfunction can unfortunately lead to a significant lack of confidence, as well as feelings of depression and anxiety.
This section is so important because it underscores the necessity of considering potential physical and medical factors when addressing low male libido. It really highlights that it's not always solely a psychological issue and strongly encourages seeking professional medical advice when there are concerns about underlying health conditions.
The book even references the author's own book, Finding the Hero in Your Husband, which grew out of her own journey of learning to truly respect a husband's need to feel like he is leading and providing.
Interesting connection.
It also addresses the often complex issue of pornography and its potential link to lower libido and erectile dysfunction over time,
Uh-oh.
suggesting that the need for increasingly explicit material can desensitize men to real-life intimacy.
This brings in the really important dynamic of relational roles and also the potential negative impact that pornography can have on sexual desire and function within a marriage. It suggests that addressing these underlying factors can be absolutely crucial in resolving issues of low libido.
The book then offers a helpful perspective, suggesting that we can reframe sex as just one important expression of the marital relationship alongside many others.
Right, like parenting, hobbies.
Exactly, like raising children, sharing hobbies, or supporting each other's dreams. By taking some of the intense pressure off of the sexual aspect, it can sometimes allow couples to actually enjoy what intimacy they do share and to really build upon the other thriving aspects of their relationship.
That makes a lot of sense.
It also emphasizes that God deeply cares about our bodies, not just for how they look, but as tools we can use to glorify Him and to love others well.
hmm
It reminds us that our bodies are, in a sense, gifts both to God and to our husbands, and they are meant to be offered freely and confidently.
This provides such a more holistic view of the marital relationship, really emphasizing that intimacy extends far beyond just the physical realm. By perhaps reducing some of the intense pressure surrounding the sexual aspect and focusing on nurturing other areas of connection, couples can sometimes actually alleviate anxiety and create more space for spontaneous intimacy to develop.
It stresses that the way we actually view our own body is often more significant than its actual appearance.
Really?
Yeah, because our insecurities can really hinder pleasure for both partners. The focus, it suggests, should shift away from constant self-improvement and more towards gift improvement, thinking about how we can use our bodies to bless and please our spouse.
Gift improvement, I like that.
It encourages us to take care of our bodies without becoming obsessed with perfection, and to really accept our husband's affirmations of attraction, even if those affirmations seem to contradict what the media portrays or our own internal insecurities tell us.
That can be hard, though.
Oh, definitely. It challenges the lie that our sexuality is somehow entirely dependent on our physical appearance, reminding us that while physical attraction is part of it, it has very little to do with long-term fulfillment. Ultimately, it's God's love that's woven into committed hearts that overshadows any perceived physical flaws.
This really shifts the focus from external beauty standards to internal acceptance and a genuine desire to please one's spouse. It highlights the incredible power of positive self-perception and the importance of truly valuing a partner's sincere attraction and love.
The book concludes this section with the powerful reminder that the greatest sex is really an outpouring of mature love, open communication, a sense of security, and deep trust. It shares a really moving reflection from Dave Burchett about his wife's beauty during her journey with cancer, where his perception of her beauty shifted from the external to the internal qualities of her faith, her smile, and her laughter.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It reinforces that true beauty in marriage is deeply emotional and spiritual, echoing the sentiment of 1 Peter 3:3 to 4 about the lasting worth of inner beauty. Ultimately, it reminds us that our bodies are tools to express and learn how to love. They are a means to an end, not the end itself. God wants us to look beyond the physical to a love that transcends this world.
That is such a beautiful and profound conclusion, reminding us that true intimacy and beauty within a marriage goes so far beyond just the physical. They are deeply rooted in a strong emotional and spiritual connection that endures through all of life's challenges and changes.
Finally, let's talk about this important idea of checking your baggage at the gate.
Okay, sexual baggage.
Yeah, really addressing the impact of past sexual history and influences on your current marriage.
Mm.
The book uses a really vivid analogy of airline baggage fees to illustrate the often hidden costs of bringing sexual baggage into your marriage. Things like past pornography use, experiences of exploitation, or a history of casual sex. It makes a thought-provoking point about the irony of living in a sexually permissive culture where so many married couples still struggle to find satisfying intimacy.
That is ironic, isn't it? This section tackles a very real and often unspoken aspect of marital intimacy. It acknowledges that past experiences and choices can have a significant impact on the present sexual relationship, even in a culture that often downplays the long-term consequences of premarital sexual activity.
The book points out that the impact of this sexual baggage can vary greatly from person to person, and there's no simple formula for predicting exactly how past events will affect someone.
Mm-hmm.
However, it does highlight some consistent principles. For example, the impact of sexual abuse experienced during adolescence can often be different than abuse in childhood, frequently leading to issues of identity confusion and deep feelings of guilt. It stresses the importance of actually voicing the lies that you might have come to believe as a result of these experiences in order to confront them with the truth.
This highlights the complex and varied ways that past trauma can manifest in the present, particularly within the intimate space of a marriage. Acknowledging and beginning to address these past experiences is often a crucial step towards healing and being able to fully embrace intimacy in the present.
The book explains how this sexual baggage can actually link unhealthy emotions with your sexual responses through something called state-specific memory recall.
Okay, what's that?
It's where past negative feelings like anxiety, guilt, or shame can become almost automatically associated with sexual stimuli. Even growing up in a home where sex was viewed negatively can create this kind of link.
Right.
Healing from this often requires retraining both your body and your mind to associate healthy and positive emotions with your sexuality. It can also create significant distrust within the relationship. The book shares an example of a woman who is deeply concerned about her boyfriend's past sexual experiences.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Then it really breaks down some specific baggage areas.
Right.
A history of sexual exploitation or abuse, emphasizing its unfortunately high prevalence and the critical importance of seeking professional help for healing.
Oh, absolutely.
A history of premarital promiscuity, noting research that suggests having more sexual partners before marriage is often linked to less sexual satisfaction within marriage,
Interesting finding.
and a history of infidelity, underscoring the devastating impact it has on trust and the long and challenging road to forgiveness and rebuilding.
This provides a really helpful framework for understanding the different kinds of sexual baggage that someone might bring into a marriage and the potential impact that each can have on their current intimate relationship. It normalizes the struggles that many couples face in this area and strongly encourages seeking appropriate support and pathways towards healing.
The book strongly emphasizes the valuable role that counseling can play in this process.
Yeah.
It provides a safe and confidential space for individuals to share their experiences, to begin to make sense of their baggage and understand its impact, to facilitate difficult but necessary conversations with their spouse, and to really put these past experiences into the broader context of their entire life and relationship, because trying to just compartmentalize these things often hinders true peace and healing.
Right, you can't just wall it off.
Exactly.
Uh-huh.
It also rightly points out the importance of carefully choosing a counselor who is a good fit for your needs.
Very important.
The book also discusses the pervasive issue of sexually explicit material in our culture, sharing some concerning statistics about pornography use, especially among young men. It highlights how early exposure, particularly during vulnerable developmental ages, can be incredibly addictive,
Hmm.
even having chemical similarities in the brain to drug addiction. It also discusses how pornography can unfortunately shape distorted views of women and of healthy sexuality.
Counseling is presented as such a vital resource for navigating these often deeply sensitive and complex issues. It offers a supportive and non-judgmental environment and professional guidance for individuals and couples who are seeking to heal and build a healthier and more fulfilling sexual relationship. The discussion around the pervasive impact of pornography in today's culture is particularly timely and relevant.
When it comes to specifically confronting his problem with pornography, the book advises approaching the situation with humility and grace,
Okay.
drawing a parallel to how Jesus approached the woman caught in adultery. It acknowledges the significant trauma that the discovery of pornography use can cause for a partner, often feeling like a form of betrayal,
Oh, absolutely.
and the deep sense of deception that can follow when a private struggle is brought into the light. It encourages empathy for the pull of temptation without ever enabling the sin itself, referencing the wise counsel of James 1:19 to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry.
Good advice.
The book shares the relatable example of Scott and Aaron, highlighting the often early exposure to pornography, its addictive nature, and the ongoing struggle to overcome intrusive images. It stresses the importance of helping the person struggling to connect the dots, to understand the very real damage that their actions are causing to the relationship,
Right. The impact.
especially considering the common differences between male compartmentalization and the more emotionally connected way that many women experience intimacy. Finally, it touches on the often delicate balance of determining responsibility in these situations, noting that sometimes wives can take on too much of the blame, while others might avoid acknowledging their partner's struggle. It emphasizes finding that balance of offering support without enabling the behavior, while clearly stating that each individual is ultimately responsible for their own actions.
Right.
And it even touches on the biblical guidance in 1 Corinthians 7:5 regarding the importance of not withholding intimacy as a form of manipulation.
This provides such practical and compassionate guidance for wives who are navigating the incredibly difficult situation of discovering their husband's pornography use. It emphasizes the crucial balance of offering empathy and support while also maintaining healthy boundaries and encouraging accountability.
When it turns to confronting her problem, the book acknowledges that for women, these struggles might look a little different.
Okay, how so?
It might involve inappropriate emotional connections with others, or the use of female-oriented pornography, which often centers around relationships and emotional narratives, and might be used as a way to cope with feelings of loneliness, boredom, anger, or pain.
Ah, okay.
It emphasizes that these behaviors are often followed by feelings of guilt and shame. The book raises a warning flag about emotionally charged friendships with the opposite sex,
Yeah, this can be slippery slopes.
with the author even sharing her own realization about a close friendship feeling like glorified adultery after reading The Bridges of Madison County. It's a strong reminder to really call sin what it is.
Yeah.
It then shares the encouraging example of Mitch and Deanna, who work together as a team to combat their individual temptations, establishing clear boundaries, maintaining open communication, and relying on prayer for strength. It makes the point that for both men and women, their initial understandings of love are often quite immature, perhaps based more on fleeting feelings than on true commitment.
This acknowledges that both partners in a marriage can face temptations and struggles that impact their sexual intimacy, and it underscores the importance of approaching these challenges as a united team, focusing on open and honest communication, setting healthy boundaries, and seeking mutual support and accountability.
The book concludes with a beautiful and foundational message. It's all about the love.
Yeah.
It reminds us that the central theme of the Bible is love, both receiving God's love and giving it back to Him and to others. It poses the powerful question. When God looks at our lives and asks, "How's your love life?" the deeper question He's really asking is, "How are you loving?"
Oh, that's profound.
It delves into exploring what kind of love we are making in our marriages, contrasting our often demanding and selfish natural human love with God's selfless agape love. It highlights the truth that we can't truly give what we haven't first received, and that real transformative love is only possible by regifting the love that God has so freely given to us, referencing 1 John 4:1 CIB and 19. God is love. We love because He first loved us.
Beautiful verses.
It even looks at Jesus' prayer for our marriages in John 17, emphasizing that His primary prayer was for unity with each other and most importantly with him, all rooted in his boundless love.
Hmm.
The story of the woman with 7 husbands in Mark 12 reminds us that earthly marriage is a temporary institution.
Yeah.
There will be no marriage in heaven.
Yeah, that's a perspective changer.
Instead, marriage and even sexual intimacy here on earth are tools that God uses to refine us and to teach us about the kind of love that will last for eternity. It uses the analogy of a chocolate factory, a temporary pleasure that can ultimately leave you feeling disappointed, urging us to focus on the eternal gift of God's love and the character that is developed within us through the journey of marriage.
Wow.
Finally, it includes excerpts from a Q&A session addressing common concerns like low sex drive and feelings of shame after premarital sex, as well as low libido after pregnancy and the challenge of a wife not experiencing orgasm.
Okay.
The advice consistently points towards separating sin from the gift of marital sex through confession and accepting forgiveness, addressing any issues like pornography use, intentionally prioritizing romance and connection, and encouraging open communication and mutual learning in the area of sexual intimacy, reassuring husbands who might feel inadequate, and reminding couples to consider both their physical and emotional well-being.
This powerful concluding section really brings the entire discussion back to the most foundational principle: love. It beautifully emphasizes that our ability to experience and express love within our marriages is so deeply connected to our personal relationship with God and our willingness to both receive and then extend His unconditional love. It offers such a profound perspective on the eternal significance of our earthly relationships and the importance of grounding them in God's love.
So to bring it all together from this deep dive into Dr. Slattery's No More Headaches, the core takeaway is that achieving a truly fulfilling sexual intimacy in your marriage is, well, it's a journey. It's going to require ongoing understanding, intentional effort, open and honest communication, and a willingness to address those personal and relational headaches as they come up.
And it's so important for you, our listener, to remember that the idea of normal is far less significant than the unique journey that you and your spouse are on together towards greater intimacy, connection, and fulfillment within the loving boundaries of your own relationship.
The book really underscores the absolute necessity of open and honest communication with your spouse, actively seeking to understand their perspectives, their needs, and their desires, even when those might look different from your own.
We really encourage you to take some time to reflect on the various barriers and potential solutions that we've discussed today, and to really consider the transformative power of God's love as the ultimate foundation for building unity and deepening intimacy within your marriage.
And here's a final thought for you to really chew on.
Mm-hmm.
Considering that marriage and earthly sexual intimacy, in their current form, are temporary in the grand scheme of eternity, how does intentionally focusing on loving your spouse in the same way that God loves you transform the significance and the experience of your physical relationship right now?
That's a deep one.
It's definitely something to let sink in.